Welcome, tennis fans, to the 17th episode of Tennis Traverse, Exploring the Game, the podcast that delves into the heart of the tennis world. I am your host, IVJ, and in today's episode, I'll be predicting the Grand Slam winners for this upcoming tennis season. And before I do all of my social media plugins, I just want to say sorry if I sound a bit off. I think I'm kind of sick. Like, a lot of people in my school is currently sick, so I think I might be getting something, but it's not that big of a deal, so I just figure why not just record this podcast. And before we begin, please follow all of my social medias. That is Instagram and Twitter using @TennisTraverse. That is @TennisTraverse. If you're listening on YouTube, comment, like, and subscribe. If you're listening on other streaming platforms, please rate my show. And let's get right into today's episode. Okay, so I want to start off with sort of like a preview of the year, but I'm not going to get into like specific details because obviously there's so many tournaments that I just can't like talk about them individually. But if you guys want to check it out, I will leave the link of the tournament schedule down below. Basically, the link comes from like the website of WTA and ATP, so I'll leave the link, but if you guys click on the link, you'll see the full year of tennis tournaments. But for this episode's purpose, I'll just be talking about the 4 major Grand Slams. But I do want to point out that the first, like, sort of formal tournament, like, the tournament that a lot of, like, good players are going to participate in, is going to be the Brisbane International, which is a 500 points tournament. And that is basically a tournament for the players to prepare for the Australian Open, which is one of the Grand Slams. So just to point that out. Okay, now let's get right into like actually predicting the winners. So I know that this is a really, really hard choice because like obviously you can just pick one out of 128 players who are competing. So, and sometimes it's like people we don't even know. Like for example, Amara Raducanu, who like literally came from qualifying matches. So like it's just a prediction, so like a disclaimer, don't come for me. But yeah. Okay, so the first one, Australian Open, I predicted, for the men's side, I predicted Novak Djokovic. Really not much explaining to do here. He's like won Australian Open, 9 or 10 times. He's literally the GOAT at Australia. I think no one can really like argue much about that. He's just constantly himself, especially he's really prepared at the beginning of the season. And I don't know, I just don't think there's much explaining to do here. I feel like I talked about this a lot in my previous episodes, but like he continues to be better the more he plays in a tournament. It's not like he plays in this level at the first round and then he just continues with this level. He like constantly improves, which I find is like super impressive. And I remember, I think it was in 2019, he had like 3 or 5 unforced errors in a whole 3-set match, which I think is just insane because it's just so easy to just make a random mistake because you have to be focused all the time. So yeah, but another factor that might stop his win is obviously his age, one thing, but I don't think he cares that much about it, and I don't think anyone cares that much about it. But the other factor is kind of Rafa, because Rafa's coming back, so obviously the crowd will go crazy for him because obviously he had his year off last year, and this probably will be his last year on tour, so I think it's going to be a wonderful tournament. So I'm really looking forward to the matchup between those two if it happens. Okay, moving on. On the women's side, I guess this is kind of random, but I said Elena Rybakina. Sorry, I can't talk. Elena Rybakina because I believe last year she went to the semifinals, and she's been going to the quarters and the semifinals consecutively for the past few years at Australian Open. So I think she's obviously one of the title contenders. Also, she's really good at serving, and because it's the start of the season, as I said before, your body's fully rested. So this could definitely be her advantage because she can serve a lot of aces, and yeah. The other player, however, I mentioned is Serena Sabalenka, considering that she was the defending champion last year. But to be honest, I think the matchup between them will be really interesting to watch, and I think Arena will have a lot of crowd behind her just because of her amazing run last year. However, I do think the crowd loves Rybakina too. I think Aussie crowd loves like literally anyone that's playing there. So I think it's gonna be a great atmosphere, and I can't wait for it to happen. I think the day I'm recording this, it's like a 29 days countdown, I'm pretty sure. Like until the tournament begins, so I'm really looking forward to it. And I just mentioned like there's some honorable mentions that I think I'll just elaborate a few sentences on. So the first is Rafael Nadal. I already talked about it, but he's coming back after his whole year off, and obviously he's Rafa. He's one of the big three or big four, so he's gonna gain a lot of attention. And Nick Kyrgios, if he comes back, because there's has been a lot of controversy surrounding him, because like he started on OnlyFans, which is kind of weird, but he's like Aussie, so the Aussie crowd obviously loves his energy and his personality. And to be honest, I kind of like his doubles matchup with Kokonakis, which I think their energy is just really funny. Like they match up with each other's energy, and like their doubles team is just so funny. So if I find like a compilation on YouTube of their funny moments, I'll leave it down below so you guys can check it out. Okay, moving on to the next one, which is Alexander Zverev. So obviously Zverev's really good on hard courts, and Australian Open will be the first ever major Grand Slam hard court tournament since the season begins. So I think we'll see more of him definitely, because the thing I want to point out was that last year Australian Open was kind of his like first major comeback after his injury at Roland Garros. So he lost against Mo in the third round, I believe, but I think that he had like a really long and impressive run considering he literally just came back from a devastating injury. So just I want to see more of him. And then the next player is Daniil Medvedev. Not much explaining to do here. He's also really funny. I'm just gonna leave a link of his funny moments as well, because literally Tennis TV has like his funny moments. So I'll leave it down below. The next player is Naomi Osaka. Bias? Not really. It's not biased because, in my opinion, Naomi Osaka is literally just coming back from a pregnancy, and she literally just gave birth 6 months ago. So it's like a huge move for her to just come back after like half a year of recovering. And I don't know, I just really want to see what's going to happen, because obviously he hasn't played competitively in such a long time. And however, the Aussie crowd loves her, so I'm really excited as to what the Australian Open crowd will do, because I think it'll be amazing. And I don't know, I'm just happy to see Naomi competing again. And it's definitely not a bias, because obviously she's one of the, in my opinion, one of the best players. So like, I'm just really happy to see her out competing again. Okay, next tournament, we'll move on to Roland Garros, which is the French Open. So in case you guys don't remember or don't know, I'll just give you guys a reminder. Roland Garros is French Open, and it's basically played on red clay. So it's a clay court tournament. And the men's side, I said that will win the title. Like, in my heart, ideal is Rafael Nadal, because he obviously deserves one. And if this is actually his last ever tournament, I really hope he ends it off with a win. And according to multiple sources on like the internet, they're saying how Rafa's like in top shape, so I think he really could be a title contender in Roland Garros. The next one is, I said again, Alexander Zverev, because in 2021 they had this amazing matchup and Alex Zverev could have beaten Rafa, but he twisted his ankle. It was really painful. I talked about this multiple times, but I kind of am excited to see a rematch, because both are coming back from injuries. Zverev obviously with his ankle, and Rafa obviously with just his whole body, because he's kind of old. So yeah, I'm just really happy to see that matchup if it happens, of course. But yeah, okay. On a woman's side, not much explain to do. Iga Swiatek, maybe her fourth time in a row again, because honestly, she's just, I think her level on clay is just unbeatable. Like, I don't think anyone can come close to her level on clay. It's like sometimes, for example, Coco Gauff will pop up and then they'll play like a close match, but I feel like Iga's just constantly at the top, and nobody could really like score a major upset against her, especially if it's at the French Open, where like every player is like almost at their top condition, if that makes any sense. Okay, honorable mentions. I talked about this, but Coco Gauff, just because I think Coco Gauff, like every crowd loves her, literally every crowd, and she's just like a really fun energy, and kind of excited to see the Iga and Coco matchup. And then the other female player I mentioned is Zheng Qingwen. So I believe it was 2 years ago. She actually like came close to beating Iga. It was like she was she lost to Iga. However, it was like really close. It's I think the closest score out of like every opponent Iga played. So I'm just really excited to see like how she plays because she obviously ended her last season on like a really strong note, and she went to multiple finals in China. So I don't know, I'm just really happy to see where she will end up. Okay, now moving on to the men's side. I said Casper Ruud, and well, Casper Ruud because he went to the finals 2 times consecutively. However, I just really want him to like actually win the title because if you guys couldn't tell from my other episodes, Casper Ruud is my fave, like among all the men's. So I think I want to see him hopefully not win a title because Rafa's competing. So like, but I really hope to see him like pleasantly surprise everyone. And to be honest, I mentioned Holger Rune because I just love their matchup. So I want to see a Casper Rune and Holger Rune matchup. And Lorenzo Musetti because I believe it was 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, but he played against Novak Djokovic on Philip Chatrier, which is like the biggest court at Roland Garros, and he actually was up 2 sets. So he's really talented. He's like arguably one of the most talented player on tour. However, he's really young, and sometimes he just, I don't know. I think most of it is his mental game, but his forehand is not as strong as his backhand, and he has like this amazing, beautiful one-handed backhand. So I don't know. I'm just really happy to see him, and I really want to see him like just play his style of tennis because it's actually really entertaining to watch. Okay, now let's move on to Wimbledon. So, men's side, I chose Carlos Alcaraz because I feel like Carlos is just gonna win a title next year, like a Grand Slam title. He probably won't win Australian Open because Novak's being Novak. And then Roland Garros, I picked Rafa because obviously Rafa's coming back. So, Rafa. And then US Open, I picked someone else over him, but no spoilers. So I think Wimbledon's the only chance Carlos really have. That's a bold statement, but yeah. And he did obviously really well last year on a grass court at Wimbledon. So yeah, Wimbledon's played on grass court, and I think his style of play, in my opinion, really suits the grass court. So kind of looking forward to Alcaraz versus Novak matchup again. Maybe Novak will make his revenge. Who knows? On the women's side, I picked Ons Jabbar just because I feel like Ons is deserving of a Wimbledon, of not a Wimbledon, just of any Grand Slam title. So I think Wimbledon will be a good chance for her of getting it because everyone thought last season that she was going to be Marketa Vondrousova. Sorry, but like when I saw their matchup, I was like, okay, Ons is going to get her first ever Grand Slam title. I'm so excited for her. But she lost in 2 straight sets, so I was really disappointed. But I think next season it might be a great season for her to maybe, hopefully, win her first Grand Slam title. And I think it will happen at Wimbledon just because she had such a successful run last year, and it was just kind of sad because she was almost there. And other player I said you guys should look out for. First is Marketa Vondrousova. Obviously, she's defending champion last year. So not much explaining to do, and I think if we see another matchup between Marketa and Ons, it's gonna be fantastic. Emma Raducanu, just because she's like posting a lot of her training and getting back on court, so I think she might, because like I believe 3 years ago, she like went to the semifinals or quarterfinals, so she was like really close, and I think this is like one of her first shot like this season to go really far at a Grand Slam tournament. So I think this might be her chance of like proving herself again. The next is Mira Andreeva because she's like I think the newcomer of the year by the WTA. So I think she played really well in Wimbledon this year, like last season. So I think maybe next season she'll do the same and go to quarterfinals maybe. I believe this year she lost to Madison Keys, but she was up a set. So I think if she worked on her mental game, because she's literally a day younger than me, that's crazy. But if she worked on her mental game, she'll literally do really well. And the next one is, well, the next two male players, I'll just talk about them together, Rafa and Novak. Not much explaining to do here. The Wimbledon crowd will love Rafa in all white just because he hasn't been there such a long time, and Novak just because he went to the final. So, yeah. Okay, moving on. US Open. Okay, so I talked about how I chose someone over Carlos for the men's side, and that person is Jannik Sinner. Not much, some explaining to do here, but Jannik Sinner had this amazing run at the end of the season, and he beat Novak in the group stage of the ATP Finals, which is the only player that beat Novak. So, to be honest, he's like one of the best right now, and I think he's like really deserving of a Grand Slam title. The crowd obviously loves him, and I just think US Open will be a great time for him to shine because I feel like he's really consistent. He always performs really well. So, to be honest, I don't think that his performance is gonna dip just because it's the last Grand Slam. I think he's gonna still like perform at his best. However, the other players such as Novak Djokovic, Carlos Alcaraz, well, just let's talk about Novak and Rafa. So like because they're getting old, so it's obviously really hard to kind of maintain that same level of performance compared to the start of the season. And Carlos, I think there's just too much pressure built on against him, but maybe he could prove me wrong. So I picked Jannik Sinner to win. And then surprise pick, bias pick, who knows? You guys can debate with me. And I chose Naomi Osaka just because it's like, okay, really biased, to be honest, not gonna lie. I chose her just because I think she's coming back, obviously, and it'll be a dream for her to win and prove to everyone that she's still capable of winning. And I think her actions are speaking because she's obviously training I don't know every single day because I'm not with her, but I know that she's been posting a lot on Instagram of her training. So I think she's obviously putting in the work. So my ideal version is if you put in the work, obviously you'll see how it'll pay off, but I'm not sure if that's actually how the world works. So I really hope Naomi wins, and to be honest, I just want a matchup between Naomi and Coco. It's literally one of the best matchups ever, and I'll leave you guys a link of a really emotional video of when Naomi bageled Coco and Coco was 16 and how Naomi handled the whole situation. It's really inspiring for me, so I'll leave a link for you guys to watch down below. Okay, honorable mentions. I said Peyton Stearns and Coco Gauff for the women's side. Peyton Stearns, I mentioned her because she went to the semifinals this year, so she's one of the black horses, and I think next year maybe she'll do really well considering she is from America. And Coco Gauff, just because she's the defending champion, the crowd here loves Coco, and everyone's low-key rooting for her, so Coco Gauff. And on the men's side, I mentioned Tommy Paul, Casper Ruud, and Rafa. So Tommy Paul because he's an American, Casper Ruud because he went to the finals once, and last year, even though he didn't perform really well, however, I think he still has a chance because he's also I feel like his year is really funny. He just performs not really well in the start and then peak at Roland Garros and then dips back down at Wimbledon and then sort of have a tiny peak at US Open if his year goes his way. So I think he might upset some players. And then I picked Rafa. I'm just really excited, I guess, to see Rafa again, and I'm just really excited to see how the US Open crowd will react to Rafa playing again. And on the last note, I just want to say I'm so excited for US Open Fan Week. Even though I will be applying to colleges, I'll probably be really busy next year, during the Fan Week time. However, I just want to say that literally Naomi Osaka's coming. Novak Djokovic, Rafael Nadal, like so many good people are playing again. So it'll be crazy if I could get a selfie with Naomi. And yeah, I'm just really, really excited for Fan Week. So I don't know if this is a good place to end off today's episode, but sorry if I sound a bit sick, but thank you so much for listening. I really hope you guys enjoyed. Please follow all of my social medias, Instagram, Twitter, using @TennisTraverse. That is @TennisTraverse. If you're listening on YouTube, comment, like, and subscribe. If you're listening on other streaming platforms, please rate my show. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye.